Welcome back everybody to KSP Interstellar Quest, our mission to reach the promised worlds of KSP2 using KSP1 and a bunch of mods. Last episode we were deep into planes, so it's time to get back into putting the space into space program. And to get you back into the mind of things, this is Scout T4 who's been sitting out in an orbit for 200 days waiting for the right window to pop up. It's almost ancient technology by now, but she's making her way to Duna. At least that was the idea. We had quite a bit of fuel left in our initial insertion stage, so we're using that before we hand it over to the internal engines of the renewed satellite bots. That is the D class, and that is where we run into our first problem. So no construction. Control wheels. In contrast to much simpler satellites, Scansat 2A, which we launched in the previous episode, who is now orbiting Minmus. But the D4 is a complete loss, so we don't have a probe to head all the way out to Duna. That is, if we can build one within a couple of days, which we could. So you're looking at Scout E5, same launch vehicle, same satellites, but now with a couple of control wheels added to it. And main cause of this is because I've been playing with kerbal construction time, so I found I could build and launch multiple rockets on a day, which doesn't really sound that realistic. And I played with the mod, but I also found that I'm breaking my install with it. So I'll put in the discipline to put some days between each launch, so we actually progress throughout the year in a kind of orderly fashion as kerbal construction time would do, without breaking my game. But the Scout E5 is running on a Calypso rocket. I don't think we've used that in it some time. And she's making her way to orbit. We're plotting the maneuver nodes. Same trajectory. She's got a ton of fuel left in her injection state, so we're using that to synchronize. The rest is about 10 times sped up footage. This is back to where we were a couple of minutes ago. We've plotted our intercept course to Duna, and being about 20 days behind in the window, we need to burn a bit more fuel, but not that much more. We're still good. You can see the construction, the control wheels added to the sides. This is a real thing. These little gyroscope spinning wheels are what keeps the International Space Station in orbit, so they don't have to, well, not in orbit, but aligned. And in KSP they're only horribly overpowered. But we don't care too much about that. This satellite is on its way. It will make a correction burn in about 90 days and then get to the red planet in about 200 days. So it's quite a steep trajectory. But we'll see to that in an upcoming episode. Today's episode seems short, but it did took me a long time to record. So we played around with a lot of the mods that I installed that I had not worked with before. Like I mentioned, kerbal construction time, but I'm also working with Sandcastle, and I'm working with the new, well, at least new for me, way of attaching and detaching stuff to the space station. So I used to use kerbal inventory system and kerbal attachment system, but now I'm using the stock equivalent of that. And I think this is Timmy, something with a T. He's out there in the space station and he's working with the Sandcastle printed rocket parts. I'm going to show you how that actually works. So we zoomed out a little bit, we find a nice angle, we open up the construction dialog, and you can see in the upper left corner that we have a couple of handrails that we 3D printed in our workshop, which is super cool. Thank you so much, Angel125, for building this mod. And we're using these parts to enhance our station. We launched it without handrails, and we found that while being on EVA, it's super handy to have some attachment point for our kerbals. We're also relocating our shuttle, the Elan, from the old part of the space station. So the Space Lab orbit is turning into a real spaceport, and the Elan shuttle needs to move over to its designated dock, which is on the main structure. And this is because we are going to decommission the old part of the space station. Yes, I've decided to get rid of the Crystal Lab, the Skyforge, our original small space station which was out there, including the relatively small laboratory that's attached to it, which is based on Benji parts, because it looks ancient by modern standards. Well, they're all sort of the same age. But it looks ancient compared to the wild blue modules that I've sent up there, making the first space station port in Kerbal orbit. On the right hand or in the lower part of the space station, you can see the construction arm that we will be using to build new craft, but also decommission old craft. This is part of the Sandcastle mod, and it allows you to break up old parts of vessels and turn them into ore, which will be stored in this huge container close to the shuttle that we're docking to. So I removed all the science and the interesting bits and bobs from the station. Removed the staff from the station, not unimportant. Fired up the direction control systems, transferred a small amount of monopropellant back into the station. Because we're gonna need that to maneuver around a bit. And she still flies beautifully. I struggled a little bit, I have to confess. All the docking ports and alignment of the thrusters wasn't ideal. But we got her around to the other end of the station. There we are. We are approaching the main dock at about 0.5 meters per second, and she gets decommissioned. And this is where I was confused because the model was there, but it got broken apart. I did find out that for Sandcastle the size of your logistics containers actually matters, so it's not all added together. If you want to print a big part, you need a big container to store it, which kind of makes sense. So we're sending up Raffaello. Yes, it's the third of the Ninja Turtles that we're putting up there. We already have Leonardo and Michelangelo, but they were also considered the golden trio of the Renaissance. So 3 famous Renaissance painters, artists, sculptors, who did not like each other very much, I learned recently. But regardless, we consider them as great heroes of the Renaissance. And we're adding this module to the station. It's actually bringing up some more parts on Buckbox containers. So our trusted engineer is out there again, grabbing the freshly printed handrails to move some of the containers around to their proper orientation. And you can find a what's it called? An airlock. Yes. So far they've been just using docking ports, and that worked fine, but it was also a bit confusing because they're not really airlocks. So we're adding an airlock to the station. We're going to put that on the sun-facing side. And on the bottom part we now have a construction, and we should be able to print an entire spacecraft, which failed. So I've asked Angel to give me some input on how to fix that, but meanwhile we're launching DeepSight B2 on a conventional rocket. I'd hoped to 3D print it, and I actually 3D printed all the parts. I'm just too lazy to assemble it in orbit bit by bit. The mod has the ability to build it from scratch, but yeah, I don't know what happened. We're launching DeepSight B2 in roughly 1 million kilometer orbit, circular around Kerbal. And this one has an asteroid processor, so it can track asteroids, which is what I'm doing right now. And it will net you about 20 signs per asteroid, depending on where they are and the size and the class and things like that. So shorter episode by normal standards, but still a lot of work on my end. See you in the next episode.